Bonjour. My name is Dancing Star. I come from the Bear Clan. I'm a member of the Mi'kmaq First Nation, and the territory I come from is a place called Button Deck, which is about 19 miles outside Indigenous, Nova Scotia. I can see all the other Mi'kmaq people with their big grins. But I live here now in the territories of the Mississaugas of New Credit, or the Haudenosaunee Lake Claim, along with the Anishinaabe, and every now and then the Cree. And so for us who are visitors here, we lay claim too. So it's called Toronto. It's the meeting place. And everything seems to begin at the Native Canadian Centre of Toronto, because most of the Native organizations in Toronto have started in this building. Aboriginal Legal Services, Namigas, Andayan, First Nation School were all somehow housed here underneath the umbrella of the Native Canadian Centre. And so we know from this space and place that things grow, they thrive, and they make an impact on the community. And so that's what we want to do today. We want it to grow, and we want to create an impact. We want to say no more of our women missing, no more of our women murdered, no more. It's got to be something done. And we're not going to be quiet about it. We're not going to be silenced. No more violence against women or men or children. We need to stand up and say it loud and clear. And so that's a pledge you can make by being here. I believe that the power of prayer is the most powerful thing on the face of the earth. And together we can pray. And it's going to happen. Because we're not going to give up. It's not in our nature to give up. So it starts with us. And I know that starts with us, we started women's circles over 35 years ago. That's what I heard. No, I was right. We started that. And Art Solomon, who's gone now, would tell us, when the women pick up their bundles, then the community will begin to heal. And I was always saying to him, what does that mean? Of course, he would never tell me what that meant. Never. I always said, what do you mean? We'll figure it out. Like, oh yeah. And so, he said about when the women pick, and I said, what's that bundle? And eventually I came to the conclusion that we are the bundle. And that's what he meant. We're very special. We're the treasures, we're the life givers. And once we believe that inside of ourselves, then others will believe it too. And then we're going to pick up that medicine and spread it around our communities and our families. And that's what happened from women's circles. And I don't know more who's on the front lines. It's our women, right? And that's great. As long as our men are standing behind us. Or our sons, or our brothers, and they understand that, they're a part of the deal too. So I'm going to try to keep talking while as much is going on. Sure, we can sit and go. Oh, yes. Okay, we'll do that. You got your drum? Okay, does anybody else have a drum they want to bring up and join us in song? As the women lift their voices. Creator, I give you thanks for this day and for another breath of life. Creator, I give you thanks for the circle of people who are here in this place and in this space. I ask you to fill our hearts and our minds with the words that are respectful that we need to share today to create a safe place for all. We welcome you here to this time and place, and we're going to do that with a welcoming song. Ready? What?
Alright, so the song we're going to sing that Juan asked us to put on today is one version of Day One Day. There's lots of different stories and songs about this, but the one that I know is that it's a Hima welcoming song. You can stand if you want, but also if you're, not feeling standing, it's cool too. are always impromptu community singers. I'm not going to say too much, I just want to orient people to the space a little bit. Yes, we are going to have food in a minute. Before that, we want to make sure we give space to the family members who are here today who participated and led and given a lot of guidance to the work of It Starts With Us. Hands up if you've heard of It Starts With Us. Hopefully you have. If not, give permission to take out your phones and Google it now. You can go to itstartswithus-moa.com. Really exciting community-based initiative to address the violence that a lot of our community members are facing. And we're going to hear some more about that tonight. We're also going to hear about the legacy of this work since before it was a hashtag, since before that was a thing, and think about where we've been and where we're going. And you're going to hear more about that. My name is Krista, and I'm just one of the many people behind It Starts With Us, and just a supporter to hold space here today and kind of tell you who's next. I think most people are probably familiar with the space. If you're not, there's accessible washrooms on the main floor, gendered washrooms right below us. You just head down those stairs. Probably anybody wearing those t-shirts can orient you to the space or give you anything you need. If you need us to light the smudge at any time, anything like that, have needs in the space, just please let us know. This head table right here is all the fabulous It Starts With Us people who you will hear from. I think that's all I need to say. We are selling shirts and taking donations. So tonight is free. We have lots of generous sponsors that we'll thank later. And if you do feel like you have some money burning a hole in your pocket, please feel free to give it to us and we'll put it to good use. So I want to call up any of the family members who have been involved with this initiative to share a little bit about what this is and anything else that you wanted to say. So this is part of our accountability is to make sure that families have the space first and foremost, and they just tell us what to do. Get like some applause or something.
It's an honor and privilege to be here. My name is Melina and I'm a member of the Blue Concrete First Nation, which is in Northern Alberta. This is actually my first time in Toronto since my sister Bella passed, so it's actually really hard to be here today. But I wanted to speak quickly because I'm actually leaving on a flight in a little bit, so I can't actually stay with everybody tonight the whole time, so I thought I'd as a family member, be here to just address the crowd and also extend my deep gratitude for the work that It Starts With Us and No More Silence and Native Sexual Health Network and Walking With Our Sisters has been doing with the families. I think right now what we're seeing is a great amount of awareness that's happening across Turtle Island, and I think that's a really great thing. But I think what's also happening, and as a family member that I'll speak to, is just a little bit of the hard times that the families are going through. I think myself, I can speak from my experience, but it's really difficult a lot of times because we deal with the police, we're dealing with the media, and we're dealing with lawyers. I feel really privileged to have a support network, and I think of a lot of the hundreds and hundreds of families that don't. And even within my day-to-day life, it's really hard because I also work as a climate and energy campaigner, so I work on a lot of land defense, environmental issues for the past decade, and so my sister's death has left our family in a big lurch because, you know, we're in crisis mode. Our communities are in crisis, defending our lands, and working really hard to, you know, find Indigenous resurgence and cultural revitalization. And my sister Bella was one of those people. She went to a Native Artisan school in Alberta, and she learned how to, you know, as our families do, make ties and learn how to weave and puff and make moccasins. And she was, the reason why she came to Toronto was to become, also, you know, pursue her education. And she had just graduated from Humber College in the fashion arts, so she was looking to mix together the traditional arts, our traditional practices, in our contemporary culture, living culture with the fashion art scene and the contemporary fashion that we see today. We see that through a lot of cultural appropriation, and she was one of the Indigenous women that was actually, like bringing that cultural revitalization back to our lands. But I was very political, and she was doing like the cultural component, and a lot of our other family members are bringing back the language and trying to keep our Miguel Creed and fluid in our speaking tradition. So it's really hard for me to actually talk about it, and there's been many times where I've been wanting to come to Toronto, especially during the walks on February 14th. I've been wanting to be here and be in front of the Toronto Police Service to protest outside. I'm sure a lot of you have been there on the cold winter days. And I actually went, I don't know, probably when I lived here, I was doing my master's in environmental studies in 2008. So I was here, on the cold streets, and I remember what it was like, and I'm seeing more and more people come out on the streets, and I really wish that I could have been here this year, because our family's been really struggling with the lack of police accountability, the lack of investigation after my sister's death. She was found, for people that don't know her story, she was found downtown Toronto, and it was a big shock to our family. I think I'm still trying to come to terms with the loss of my sister. She was my baby sister, so she was 7 years younger than me. She was a very vibrant person, a very loving person. I'm kind of one of the serious person, and she was kind of the one that brought me a lot of joy to make me lighten up and not take things so seriously. She used to make fun of me and say I was so political and all these things. She's gonna hate me for saying that, but she just made me laugh a lot, and it's a lot of grief to walk through the streets of Toronto. It feels really unsafe to me now. I don't think Toronto ever really felt safe to me, but it feels a lot unsafer, and I'm happy to be here with the other family members. We're really forever indebted to you, because really without Audrey and without Aaron and Krista and Beth and all the people, all the women that we were meeting with today in our collective, I really wouldn't have known how to respond to media and the Lord and Krista, Jake knew where we were and are. I think that the more support that we can lend directly to families is actually the best thing that we can do at this point in time. Continue to raise the awareness, but also thinking about those families that live this reality every day. So thank you for this.
So we're being super grassroots by responding to exactly what families want to do in the moment. And I think this is an example of what the solutions actually look like in terms of what are people actually asking for and actually want to see, and listening to that and acting on that. We did have, as Melina mentioned, we did meet today to kind of internally figure out a structure and a plan moving forward in terms of what does it start with us mean. What does this look like? And really basing that off of the family feedback that we've gotten so far. What's needed in terms of the gaps, what kind of already exists, what's happening, what's not happening, and what we really need to take action on, and where people are seeing that needs to happen. So that's really what we're coming from, and why also we're having this event tonight, so we can feed that back to community, and also to give that voice back to family members who are oftentimes not listened to by government or state-driven initiatives, or left out of processes. So actually looking at re-centralizing those voices. So I'd encourage everybody to go on the Espresso's website, read the tributes that you have if you want to know a little bit more about Bella. And Melina put and her family put lots and lots of energy into doing that. So please take a look at that.
My name is Maggie Silink. I'm from Nourishment Constellation. In honor of all of our ancestors, in honor of all of our Indigenous it starts with us. Without this movement for my family and for me personally, I would not be able to have grown to the place where I feel like we need to go to. Because this is a sacred journey that each and every one of us are taking. By being here tonight, putting your shoes on and making yourself come here tonight is a very powerful statement that you're making to your family, you're making to your friends, and you're making to the general public around you. It starts with us has been a very healing opportunity for me because they have given me a space that I could not have gotten otherwise. And I believe honestly that there is this opportunity for us to take this moment in time and to understand why our women are going missing, why our women are being murdered, where are these women going, and why are we letting this happen? So I applaud everybody here tonight, and I want to give the highest regards to the families who have taken this moment to express themselves, to share their thoughts, and to share their experiences, because without each other and without the growth that we make as a circle, there is the strength that we can build upon what we already have now. And I can't tell you how deep I feel over the loss of my sister, Bella, and all the other Bridget's mother, and all the other women that I haven't even met yet, but yet I feel this loss deep inside my soul. So as we move forward, I want you to be aware that the families here tonight honor you because you honor us. And I can't express how deeply I'm concerned about the epidemic of our missing and murdered women. This is not something to take lightly. We need to be aware of each other's space. We need to know that we're on a sacred journey together. Nobody can do this alone. I cannot walk this journey alone. I need to walk it with you hand in hand. And the more that you express that with your family and friends, the more that you share this movement, the more strength that we're going to garner together. The more quickly we're going to move forward to end this, to stop this slaughter of our women and our girls. I want to thank you tonight, everyone here tonight, because without you here, we could not be here. Bless you.
The law will not find Indigenous cause. Sisters, brothers, thank you. The previous speakers, my younger sister, and I'd like to speak about something called justice. And I hear no more violence, it starts with us, these other organizations. And where do we go? And I have to ask myself the question, what can I do? What can I do? And one of the things that I do is I pay attention to the victims. That's where I look. In our justice system, we look at the victim first. For that is the one who has been harmed. That is the one who has been traumatized. And how do you bring them back into being a healthy, productive human being? And there are ways to do this. I am not a parent, so I cannot speak as a parent. However, in my lifetime, I have verbally assaulted children 3 times. That means I yelled at them. 2 times because they were about to become injured accidentally. And when I yelled, they froze. And it was all good. The last one was just ton of kids in the house who were just way too noisy. So, in the cycle, in the intergenerational cycle of community development, I look at the children. And in my lifetime, and some say I'm young, I have seen change, good change. I have seen improvement. I see young men and women today who respect each other, who aren't fighting all the time, who aren't, physically assaulting each other. And to me, this is a good thing. So what can I do? And I go about my life, and I understand that I just be a powerful example. And I'm a very good example of a poor example. So, take what you can. Just take the good stuff. I think of my sister more often. I can see her smiling at the efforts of our nation. And I'm a proud member of the Anishinaabe Nation. I come from a small community, same what my sister mentioned. But I am a member of the Anishinaabe Nation. And it's being an example to these younger children. So these are the things that I can do. They're practical, they are literal, and it's a small thing, but it has a very strong impact, long-lasting for a lifetime. And as I move towards the western door, I know that I'll have done something. I'd like to thank you for your support. I'd like to thank you for those of you who are here who share this faith. And let's celebrate life.
So next we're going to hear a little bit of an update about It Starts With Us and some of the background that you made on the scene. There is the website that talks a little bit about kind of who we are, what we're about, what the initiative wants to do, the different aspects of it. But to give you a little bit of an update on kind of what's been going on behind the scenes is Audrey Huntley. Audrey's been organizing with No More Silence and many other partners and amazing people, and is kind of who I want to be if and when I ever grow up. Audrey's also a documentary filmmaker, and she's telling me to stop. I'm trying to embarrass her. Because I think we realize today that there's lots of unrecognized work that happens, and a lot of us in community do so much work behind the scenes in kind of invisible ways. So we want to make sure that we lift that up with each other, with our friends, and with the people that we see in community. And just like all of the people here who just showed up and had their drums and had their voices and offered that. So I want to make sure that we continue that practice so we all get through this because it's hard work. So we're going to have a little bit of an update, and then we're going to go into food. Yay, who's hungry? And then during the food, we have some guest musicians in the house who just graciously offered to do some of that during our food time. And then we have some very special guests that we want to make sure we give lots and lots of time to hear from. So.
Thank you, Krista. So, I'm not going to keep you very long. And in terms of acknowledging people who are working in the background, I really want to give a huge shout out to our research team, who is not present tonight, but we have three amazing allies, Kate, Shasta, and Miriam, who've been working so hard for the past 2 years on the database portion. We had decided that we would start with Ontario. It is a very, very overwhelming and daunting task, but so far we have researched 158 names in total and are in the process of entering those into an actual database, which will allow us then to run what is called queries and basically show patterns. The kind of patterns that we're interested in looking at are the life circumstances of the loved ones that we've lost. So we're not just looking at, the horrible details of these murders or disappearances, but we're also looking at what led up to these incidents. We're looking at the involvement of residential school in the family. We're looking at child welfare involvement, the occupation the person was carrying out. And I also think it's really important that we're including trans and two-spirit, which is something that tends to be invisibilized, although this issue has gotten a lot more attention in the last couple of years. That is something that still needs to be reminded and, I believe, included. So that's one of the most powerful things, I think, for me, that's come out of It Starts With Us, is that we're really looking at holding those people up who often, unfortunately, both in the mainstream and in our own communities, get stigmatized and get shamed, perhaps for the work that they do, or for the gender identities that they choose, or how they choose to live their lives. And it's really important for us to stand strong and take direction from those folks, and to remember, you know, who is really the expert in their own experience and who's most impacted. So we still have a lot of work to do. And we hope to be building the work in other regions. One of the good things that came out of today's discussion was just a reminder that this really is about decolonization. And so one of the practices is that we're doing the counting, we're going to be doing this counting by nation and not so much by the colonial, places that are now called Ontario. But no, we're going to be looking at the Nish women who are gone and the Two-Spirit Haudenosaunee, and approaching this in a manner that will always be about asserting our sovereignty over who we are in life and in death. So I'm going to, I think we can start with food now. And we're going to have women and elders. Elders go first.
I just asked Wanda, I was like, how should we do the food tonight? So we're gonna see if we can do people who have kind of been doing this work and have been part of this movement to go up and do that. So some of us are pretty humble about that. So if you need somebody to elbow you to get up there, because this, maybe you've been doing frontline work, maybe you've been involved in this movement, maybe you've, I don't know, lots of ways that you give life to people. Please feel free to do that first. And encourage people that you know are hard workers and are there for community supports to get some nourishment first. Is that okay? So we're volunteering Cheryl, one of our No More Silence members, to she's like, no! Speaking of unsung heroes, who did a lot of the logistics, a lot of the organizing today. So go with Wanda will go with you. And Audrey. All three of them go together. If anybody wants a hand if you want to nominate somebody to get you a plate because you don't feel like navigating the crowd, please feel free to ask somebody to do that. We can do that as well. So we'll give people about 5-10 minutes to do that, and then while you're in line and sitting down, I want to invite our musicians to come up.
Diana Solvego, Yaso Domankuse, Kayande Haga, Nyok White Shabda, Haudenosaunee. Greetings of peace to all of you. I told you my real name. My real name is Gowentuse, and it means she's visiting. I'm Mohawk Nation from Six Nations, Grand River Territory, Bear Clan, and we're part of the bigger Haudenosaunee Confederacy. And very honored to be here this evening and today and being part of the campaign and the organization that starts with us. And I think it's really important. I want to take this time to share. I think that that request to talk about this legacy of restoring safety in our communities. You know, there's a lot of times we talk about, you know, no violence, ending violence. I really think that we need to shift our language to a really positive picture. I come from a really strong line of women, of clan mothers, of faith keepers, and have been raised very traditionally in my community. And I was raised with that knowledge that I didn't realize how much knowledge or how important it was and is. And despite being raised in that place, I had a really violent grandfather who was a faith keeper in the Longhouse. And he was a pedophile. And so, you know, we talk about legacies, we talk about where do we start from when we start talking about violence. When we can talk about our ancestors who have also survived violence and have lived through violence. How many generations of residential school survivors there are. My grandmother being one of them, who was in the mush hole. And because she was in the mush hole and she came out of that place refusing to acknowledge that she was Mohawk. She wouldn't speak the language. She wouldn't have anything to do with being Mohawk. So it silenced her. They stole that from her. They stole a whole lifetime of those teachings because we come from that matriarchal society where our women are supposed to be honored for their role and their responsibility in bringing life, in carrying life, in nurturing life. And how many generations have had to survive that? That's a legacy of violence in itself. And so then talking about being a survivor of violence, when we have to learn how to survive. How do we survive those generations of historical traumas that we carry on our shoulders and our backs? When we carry that stuff and just learn how to survive. Well, we've even gone beyond that to be winners, to be victorious. Where I can now stand here and I can now talk about those historic traumas and the violences that occurred in my own life. And coming out a winner. Being able to stand up here to be able to talk about an issue that's really hard to talk about. It's a really uncomfortable subject to talk about sexual violence, to talk about rape, to talk about being abused as a child, to be abused as a partner. No, I've survived all that. But now being able to talk about, well, what can we do about it? So what did I do about it? So I said first that I need to stop this for my daughter and my grandchildren, who happen to just walk in the room. You know, my daughter witnessed too much. We all witness too much when it comes to violence. We all know what it does to our bodies, what it does to our spirit, what it does to our heart, and what it does to our mind. And so I'm still really angry, I'm still pissed. I'm so pissed off. It's not even funny. But it's that anger that's that fire that keeps me going, to understand and to make people stand up. We gotta stop how we treat each other. We gotta stop that violence. We gotta relearn, and restore those teachings. So in restoring those teachings means we have to understand what they are. And the language, the deep soul teachings, where we come from, and our relationship to the land, and our understanding of how that's directly related to the violence that's occurring to us as women, and the violence that's occurring to our mother, the earth. It's a direct relation. There's a direct connection between everything that's happening in society. So on my journey of healing, I decided to go to law school. Yeah. That's one of the most abusive places to be. Because you begin to learn about how law was used as a tool of assimilation, and how law was used as a tool of violence against our people. So I used that as a healing. I quit drinking in 1992, and I was in my second year of law school. And it was the very first time, actually, I went into a sweat in the native law program in 1991. And that's where those tears just came like crazy, because I asked for help, to help me to understand why things happen the way they have, and what I need to do to move forward. And it was during that time when there were some pretty amazing elders who taught me about where I come from, and listening to their teachings and saying, hey, I know that. I was raised with that. So how come things didn't match? You know, my grandfather being raised as a faith keeper in the longhouse, and he was a pedophile? Like, that just didn't make sense. When we're taught about our teachings about love and caring and respect and kindness and compassion, and the role of our men being our protectors. So what happened? What happened to that? So I started understanding that for myself first. My grandmother being in residential school. My mother died when I turned 24 from cancer. And so she had to live through the legacy of the residential school, even though she didn't attend. But the traumas that she went through. So she ended up in a mental institution before I was born, probably a year before I was born. And so we had to find out, we had to find out what happened to her. And find out that she was given shock therapy in order to help her in her, whatever that mental illness. And all she needed was ceremony. She needed ceremony to help her to understand that violence that had occurred in her own life. And so also she kept that silent. She never said anything to us. We found out later. Same with my grandmother. So when we start talking about our roots and where we come from, we have to understand how that violence has had an impact and heal from it. And using that anger in a good way. So using the anger in a good way, because anger is an emotion. Using our anger in a way that's going to shift things into the positive. That's always what our tradition was about as well. Having a good mind. Gani Kuyo. Gani Kuyo means having a good mind, but it also means that we act on it. So all of that negative crap that happened in my life, in my mother's life, in my grandmother's life, has now been put in a place where it has nothing to do with us anymore. And standing up and saying, that's it. That's enough. That's enough of that crap. And standing up and saying, we all have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility as human beings. Even in our language, Ongwahongwe means human being. It doesn't have a color. It means as human beings that we're all equal. We're all the same, no matter what kind of titles we have. And so, because of those teachings, I always use that in everything that I've done. So, as a lawyer, graduating from law school, doing my master's degree in law, and using that as a tool, but also not treating anybody any different in my path. Then becoming president of the Native Women's Association of Canada. Boy, I learned lots there. All of the experiences with government, with all the politicians, parliamentarians, the people who work for them, their bureaucracy, our own political organizations, our own men, our own women. No, I've learned really well. I didn't know anything about politics before I became president of it. Nothing. I didn't even know who a political party was. I didn't even know who they represented. But it became a really fast learning curve being in Ottawa. And so one of my first tasks was the Kelowna Accord. So I go to Kelowna, and one of my requests was to have violence on the agenda. Right, we had all the other issues, health, education, I can't remember now, what all other surface issues that are easy to talk about. And so that was one of my requests at the time. And I had been doing lots of work before that, and, you know, bringing peoples with lots of skills to create the Sisters of Spirit initiative. And bringing all those people with those skills and creating a process and creating a project to bring attention and to develop the database, to do all of those things. But before that happened, this is what happened at Kelowna, is when I had asked for this issue of violence, they told me, yeah, it'll be on the agenda. And so we got their big hoopla, right? All the news reporters, mainstream news, and they come into the room, have those fake smiles on your face. And so I'm sitting around the table, and it's the first time I see the agenda, and violence isn't on the agenda. So I'm like, I'm really good at strategy. So what do I do? What am I going to do? Am I just going to stay silent? I don't think so. So I used the opportunity. And you know, as president of the Native Women's Association of Canada, they always put us at the bottom of the list of speakers, right? Well, that's a perfect place. That's a perfect place because you get to hear what everybody else is bullshitting about. And having the opportunity to speak the truth. And so that's what I did, and that's what I do. And I said, this is what you told me, Prime Minister Paul Martin. You told me that violence was going to be on the agenda because it impacts all of these agenda items that you have here. Health, education. And it's like, I could just see their faces drop. And one of the elders that had helped me there, she was from Mission, BC. Even before walking up there, she said, don't cry. It was all men. It was all men then. There wasn't any female premiers. Of course, there's no female prime minister. So it's all men around the table. And I could just see their faces drop. And as soon as I was finished, we had a break. And all of a sudden, I was shipped off. It was Andy Scott, who was the Minister of Indian Affairs at the time. And he ships me off, and he says, Prime Minister wants to talk to you. And I said, oh, okay. Good, I got his attention. So we went, and I had a conversation with him, and he said, we're going to help you. We're going to help the Native Women's Association of Canada. Just give me some time. Basically, don't say anymore. Right? Don't say anymore. Don't embarrass me anymore. Don't embarrass us anymore. And I said, well, I don't know if I can promise you that. I said, but at the same time, we know that governments need to be held accountable. They need to be held accountable for the historic legacies that you have left us, that you have left me, that you have left Indigenous women in this country. So, I'll wait. So in law school, it was really easy, what I call the surface stuff. You know, land claims, treaty rights, negotiations. those are really easy surface stuff to talk about, self-determination, sovereignty. But when you get to the core, when you get to the root, when you get to the issues of violence and poverty, you know, that's when we start talking about our relations with each other. How do we relate to each other as human beings? Like, what's the point of having self-determination and treaty rights, or right to this or right to that, if we're killing each other? What's the point? So that's when my focus had become, so that was back in 2000. I just finished teaching at the Native Law program that summer. And so I did a report for the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Peoples' Rights on the impacts of colonization on Indigenous women, and included everything, right? Including missing and murdered Indigenous women. And then there was another meeting in Caldwell First Nations. They were preparing for the World Conference Against Racism. And so we were out on the land, we were out in the bush, we had all the, the teepees and the fire, and that became a discussion there as well, and it became part of a report that went to the World Conference called the Undeclared War Against Indigenous Peoples. And so that was then led to the work with Advocacy. And I would have to say that was those that have and understand the trauma related to this issue. In meeting with families across the country and hearing story after story after story after story after story of families who are living with trauma and loss and grief, and they've never shared it with anyone before. And every single one of them saying, I feel so alone. I feel so isolated. Nobody's here to help me. Nobody's ever asked us, how can we help you? Or what can we do to help you? And it was really frustrating and harsh. And one of the things that I had to do was go to the Picton farm. And I would have to say that was one of the most horrific feelings ever. There was this ugliness, this darkness, this horrible. It actually made me physically sick when I left there. I was sick for about a month. And when I talk about my name, and I say my name, my real name, she's visiting. I do have visitors, not just physical visitors who are visiting with you, but I have those spiritual visitors, those women. And I know they're around when we start these conversations. And a lot of times when I'm speaking, sometimes they seem to overpower what I need to say, because sometimes I say things and I'm like, where did that come from? And one of them was after Kelowna. And after doing this work with Amnesty, becoming president of NWAC, and being pushed by the families to become president of NWAC. It was the families who said, we need your voice. We need to hear you. We need you. We need you to help us. And that was always in the forefront in everything that I did, was every single woman's voice that I heard, not only physically, but spiritually. And so after Kelowna, we have a meeting in Washington at the OAS, so we were able to present this in every international place that we could. And I say we because it wasn't just me. There was a whole bunch of people that were involved that helped me to become the voice. It wasn't just me. And so when we went to Washington and we presented at the OAS, I had a phone call and I remember it well, and it was from the Prime Minister. Because we were supposed to have a press release on February 14th for the Sisters in Spirit initiative. And so they called and had a conversation with him, and he said, I'm really sorry, but we're not ready to have this press conference. And I just remember this feeling, this overpowering of all these women and swearing. I don't swear. It's like, F this, F you. Where's Jeannie? Jeannie, where are you? It was her mom. Jeannie is become my adopted daughter. Sarah DeVries was one of the victims of Picton. So she always talked to me, amongst many others. And I just remember that feeling, that anger again, and thinking about the purpose in all of this was for them. You know, they sacrificed their life. They sacrificed their life for us to make us stand up, to say that's it, that's enough, it's over. We can't do this anymore. They need us. They need us to help them with their children, the ones who are left behind. They need us to restore our families. They need us to restore our communities. They need us to restore our nationhood. That's why this is happening, and that's why it's growing so fast. Because as Indigenous people, we've always fed our ancestors. We always feed them because we give thanks to them for helping us. And they're just right there. They're not very far away. And so when we continue to do this for our kids and our grandchildren, and again, you know, one of our teachings is that we always think 7 generations ahead. Not just our grandchildren, but those faces that we see in the sand and the dirt and the earth. And that we think that every single decision that we make in this lifetime has an impact on them. And that we do this for them. Because I know my ancestors did that for me. You know, all those treaty relationships, all those historic relationships, all those teachings. When I think about the peacemaker and the great law and Jigonsasa, first grandmother, those teachings that they taught us about being women, about our roles and responsibilities, about the teachings we have about all of our medicines that help us mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So that's what all of these reminders are of. These reminders that we have to reclaim, revitalize, restore those teachings. And we're also on this in this prophecy, right? We're living in a prophecy. We're living in it. We're living right in the midst of it. In this lifetime, when you think about this lifetime, we are the ones who are responsible to make that decision how things are going to be in the next lifetime. So that's what we say, it starts with us. That is what it means. We all have a responsibility. We have a responsibility for those future generations. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share my journey with you. And it hasn't ended. You know, still plugging away and getting pissed off, and you know, the next step also is talking to our men. We need our men to stand up, to take their roles back, to stand with us and say, you know what, I'm going to protect her, whoever that is. Whether it's their mother, their sister, their partner, that was their responsibility. And our men have been impacted just as much as our women have. So it's time to restore and to uplift them as well. Because we need men. We need our men. They're part of life-giving as well. Can't have babies without men. But it was also that responsibility for us as mothers and fathers to teach our children to be good people. So we need to reclaim that, to restore, to teach it. Have ceremony. Ceremony has to be involved in everything. Ceremony has to be involved in every stage of life. That was what was cut off at residential school. All those ceremonies, those rites of passage. So again, I better stop there. I better give Mary some time to speak. My friend Mary. You know, Mary, I'm going to introduce Mary, if that's okay. I'm trying to think of when I met Mary, because she impressed me immediately in her knowledge of being a lawyer and her relationship with our people. You know, we start talking about that equality and that respect. That's what I saw with Mary. And we were actually it was doing some work on Bill C-31. And so that's part of what the work that she was doing for many Indigenous women, and the work I was doing also. And so that's where our paths crossed. And you know, those messages again are saying, you need to work with her. So I said to Mary, we were at that meeting, I said, Mary, I got to talk to you. Because it was also almost 10 years since I graduated from law school, and I didn't get called to the bar. And so I had to make a decision whether I was going to get called to the bar. And no, there's Mary. I said, Mary, can I work with you? And she said, there was no hesitation. So she became my principal. And I articled with her and got called to the bar. And it was a really amazing experience to learn from her, and I continue to learn from her. And so I want to thank her for all of the work that she's done as well. And so she has been a tireless ally and advocate for Indigenous women and Indigenous peoples. And I know that she's also a leader in her community, in her people, and where she comes from. And I want to thank her for that. So thank you, Mary. Thank everybody.
As poor, very poor Europeans,
my ancestors came here for economic opportunity. And one of the things that they were prepared to do for economic opportunity was give up their heritage. They gave up French, they gave up Gaelic. And I can remember my mother, when I was a child, refusing to speak Welsh to me because she didn't want me to have an accent, because she wanted me to have a plenary opportunity in this country. And when settlers at the higher economic end of things decided that you had to lose your language too, I believe that they were kind of aided in that by the willing compliance of my ancestors to give up what they had in order to find economic prosperity. And so that's the sort of paradigm in which I'm working. I want to pick up where my journey intersects with Bev's. As she said, she articled for me as part of her lawyer's training. And I think that was probably about the last time when she really actually learned anything from me, because when she assumed her leadership position and I was working for the Native Women's Association, I learned so much from her. And I started in 2004 in my postgraduate studies in anti-colonialism. I had been working for the Native Women's Association since '91. I've been there for a long time. But it was under Bev's leadership that I really started to pick up the pace, as it were, with this learning. And a number of things happened. A member of my family disclosed to me in 1996 that she had been abused by her father. And the response of my WASP feminist friends was not helpful. Feminist leaders, an educator, a doctor, lawyers, judges, their message to me and to my relative was, just put it behind you. Get on with your life. You've got a whole life ahead of you. Just put this behind you and don't dwell on it. And that meant shut up. Be quiet. Do not make waves. And there will be rewards in this for you if you do not make waves. And it was only later that I came to understand that these practices in my community, and this was an extremely privileged feminist community, white feminist community, could explain why I was hearing at conferences from Indigenous women that they didn't think that white women ever got sexually assaulted. They were astonished. So let me fast forward to 2004, which is when I met Bridget Colley at there was a gathering at the University of Ottawa, sponsored by the Native Women's Association. And it was a time when some of the families from around the country started coming together. And it was interesting to meet Bridget because the person in our family who had perpetrated the sexual assault, who was at the time a sitting judge, came from Maniwaki. And so for me, meeting Bridget was having Maniwaki with all of the colonial power that connoted, become Kiganzizi. And it was a paradigm shift for me. So in 2004, that was the year that the Sisters in Spirit campaign was going on, when various efforts were being made to get Paul Martin to commit funding. And as part of this gathering early in 2005, I was asked to write a paper to explain sort of why there was so much violence against Aboriginal women, Indigenous women in Canada. And I started And I had a draft paper, and I went to the gathering with my draft paper early in 2005 and said a few things. And then the Sisters in Spirit campaign took off, and I didn't finish my draft paper. And then I still didn't finish my draft paper. And I still didn't finish my draft paper because I had actually gone back to school. I had gone back to anti-colonial school. And you know, it took me 10 years to finish that paper. 10 years. It was published last year. And I published a paper called Victoria's Secret: How to Make a Population of Prey. Victoria being the great queen, of course. How to make a population of prey. And in that paper, I traced all of the ways in which Canadian law and Canadian legal practice had isolated Indigenous women to the point where they were without legal protection of any kind, without even a legal identity of any kind, and deprived of their traditional roles in their society. And so they were absolutely fair game out there with no protection. So it took me 10 years under the benevolent spirit of Kitigan-Zibi, but I finally got it. And what I want to say about that is that you and Indigenous women, the Indigenous community, have been carrying all the freight of the anti-colonial work, all the freight, because people in my community have been so slow to wake up to the fact that this is the job. The job isn't doing something frilly over here and something nice over there, something kind down here. The job is to get rid of colonialism. And colonialism is still going on. You know, the 1985 and the whatever, later, 2000 amendments to the Indian Act are still colonizing. They're still doing the same stuff. And the Harper government is still doing the same stuff, even though he says Canada does not have a history of colonialism. It doesn't have a history of colonialism because it has a present of colonialism. It's not in the past. That's what he really needs to say. People are starting to talk about this. I went to the YWCA Women of Distinction dinner this last Thursday, and all these great women are being honored by the YWCA. 6 out of 7 of the women in their personal statements said that they began their own social justice work because they had been exposed to the justice work of Indigenous peoples when they were young. 6 out of 7. Oh, I want to help. This is what the settler says. Okay? I want to help. So what does I want to help really mean? What's it code for? It means I want to make a small contribution of something, either work or resources, that will make me feel really good about myself. I want to help. I want to feel really good about myself. And so I want to help. And I want to help. I want to make this contribution in a context where very quickly after I make the contribution, good news will result. So I want a small contribution that will make me feel good and that will produce immediate results. Some leaders in the settler community can stand up and say, and more are doing that, let us clean our own house. Let us admit that this kind of abuse happens in our world and confront it and stop being, the pleasant, sort of airbrushed portrait of family grace that we would like to think we are, and admit that all this abuse goes on in our world as well, and work from that point as allies of other women where it happens. Admit that this happens in our world, and admit our role in to Indigenous women. And what is that role? It's not just the perpetrator. It's not just the evil guy who takes some young student out behind the milk shed on the farm at the residential school. It's everybody that saw it, that knew it, and said nothing. The people who are quiet, who say nothing. That is our training, after all, as WASP settlers, is to say nothing. Don't say anything about ourselves, don't say anything about what we see, but we have to start acknowledging what we have witnessed, so that not just active perpetrators, but also those who have killed through indifference will acknowledge what we have done. So, as you can tell, I'm kind of warming to my task here. I think I'm, through the grade 1 and grade 2 studies of anti-colonialism. And so I have a couple of other things. Please, make demands on settlers. If somebody sort of wafts your way and says, oh, how can I help? Make demands. Absolutely make demands. Don't feel badly about doing it. Make demands. Get people working. Get people working as your technicians, under your guidance. I'm grateful for the chance to come here today and be part of the work of the groups over the course of the morning and the early afternoon. I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity to have learned some anti-colonial craft from the master and many others. And I am very grateful that I can now contemplate a future in which I am kind of out of training wheels, and I'm trying now to go ahead as an ally and stand up and fix things on the settler side of the ledger. And I thank you for the opportunity to do that.
including transgendered and two-spirited. And I think it's really important to talk about this research right now. For a few different examples, one of the biggest examples is that the fact that in my research so far I've come across 3 entire families, Indigenous families, that have gone missing. There's a case in BC, there's a family of 4, mother and father and 2 sons, all Indigenous. There's a family of 5 in what was Northwest Territories. A mother, father, I'm not sure what the gender of the 3 children were. And there's a grandmother and a son in Saskatchewan. So all of them are missing. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge our men in this research and this movement as well, because there is they are needed. They are needed here, and I'm really happy to see the men that have come up today and spoke, and the 2 men that were playing the instruments. And we really need men acknowledge the victimizations of our Indigenous men as well. Thank you.
So when the haters say, what about the men? Talk to Jen. Not to make light of it. So thank you for sharing that and for the work that you do. We have some sponsors to thank, but I don't have the list. Do we want to? Okay, come on up.
We would definitely want to thank the Women and Gender Studies Institute with their Community Knowledge Alliance Fund, the awesome Groundswell, which is a community fund that also contributed to bringing, we have brought about 5 or 6 people from different parts of the country. Also, the Center for Women and Trans People at UFT came up with a big chunk of money to cover the room, and QP 3903. As well as all the volunteers who helped us today. I would encourage you to offer us a donation though if you get a chance. I think there's an envelope on the table by the t-shirt, so that would help as well.
So we're going to ask Wanda to close us out in a good way. There is also contact information if you want more information. Oh, yes, right, of course. We have another community announcement.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sigrid, and I'm here. I am Mohawk and Swedish, and my people come from 6 nations. I'm here to announce Reclaim the Streets. Reclaim the Streets was a 2009 response to Carolyn O'Connelly, being an Indigenous woman being found at Sherborne and Dundas, deceased, or Sherborne and Sugar. So this year, the Reclaim the Streets is going to be on June 17th, which is a Wednesday. It's going to start about 5:30 with food, and then 6 o'clock with entertainment and speeches, and then 6:30 with a march. 2015 Reclaim the Streets is a woman identifying trans and two-spirited march in the downtown East End. I hope you can all make it, and I'm sorry that we have to keep having these marches.
This is an example of really community-based organizing that's happening to address real needs, what people actually need, which is safe housing, safe shelters, 24-hour access. We are going to do the fastest closing Eberts. We have 10 minutes to get out of the building. So we're going to ask people after we do the traveling song to, if you're able to help put away the tables and chairs, but please don't do anything that would hurt you. So if you want to help in other ways, you can also eat the rest of the salad that's there, help us clear out some garbage, make sure nobody drops the table on themselves, and just help everybody get out of here by 9 o'clock so that the security and staff here can also go home at a reasonable time. So, Washington Chief, thank you so much. I'll turn it over to Wanda.
Okay, actually not about a closing. It's about a new beginning. It's about traveling from this time and space and taking with us the things that we have learned, the things that we have heard, and doing something about it. So, we celebrate the lives of people, and when she said I had to be really fast, I'm like, oh yes. But things she said, no, you gotta say it. But we can just take a moment to connect together with each other. Everyone is somewhere else. And so I'd like you all to come back here to this room with us. And let's take a breath collectively. And again. Much better. So, it's about leaving this space with the things that we have learned. It's about making changes from now on, making commitments. It's about I asked our ancestors to follow us home so we get there safely to the doors of our lodges, wherever they may be. You know, some are flying out, so that's Ottawa and other destinations. That we always honor those who are at home, keeping our home fires burning as we are out doing the work for the people. Because it is they that we go home to, who comfort us and hold us, and get us ready to start again the next day. And so we acknowledge those people. And so our ancestors know that in this place, we've completed what we've come to do. And that you fill our hearts and minds with the things that we need to know to continue on this journey, fulfilling the responsibilities that we're here for. And so we're going to do the traveling song for maybe like chipmunks. You guys have to be really quick.